A rush of adrenaline. A flurry of fingers over the keyboard, eyes darting across the screen. Choices made with zero room for indecision. And finally, if we're lucky, the sweet ecstasy of victory. Unfortunately, we don't always get to taste that ecstasy, and once in a while, we don't just feel the weight of a single defeat, but that of many. The burden of defeat becomes a crushing tide as loss upon loss fills up our match history with red. We lose confidence and grow desperate, not knowing why we're losing so much. We're willing to try anything to end this losing streak. Hello guys, my name is Pig and welcome to the Daily. Today we are going to be talking about inconsistency and massive losing streaks. Of course, we've all had those days where we're not playing as well as we normally do. The losses are coming in a little bit harder and faster than we'd like, and we're just generally not playing up to our usual standards. What a lot of us don't realize is it's actually how we as players respond to these moments of inconsistency that often leads us down the road towards full-on tilt and the inevitable massive losing streaks that follow on from there. There's two super common responses to inconsistency that we're going to be talking about today. This first game here is a great example of reaction number one. I like to call this the, I'm playing really shit today. Maybe I should rush my opponent? Notice the question mark in the enunciation there. Whilst aggressive strategies aren't a bad idea, especially when you're having a rough day, the way most of us do it as a sort of knee-jerk reaction, and as we're about to see me do it here, rather than a well-planned and calmly considered strategy, this usually means things aren't going to go well and it's going to end up pretty poorly because you just haven't really thought through your entire game plan. Here in this game, I remember my thought process as being, I'm not playing my best right now, let's do a rush. The thing which is funny though, is I had no clear build order and my game plan could basically be summed up as, let's do that one base speedling rush where you try to cancel your opponent's natural expansion and then you expand behind it and you kind of get ahead that way. I'd seen Scarlet do this build as well as a lot of other pro gamers. I knew it was a pretty decent build order, but I couldn't remember, is it 13-12, 14-13? I ended up doing a 14-14, going up to 15 drones, which is not ideal. It's a few more drones, a little bit less commitment than you want, makes it harder to do damage. And I couldn't even remember when the expo went down. I couldn't remember when to pull off gas. The whole build order here was an absolute mess. I just didn't really know this build order. I was going off a very vague impression I'd seen from watching other players' games, but I hadn't paid attention to any of the details in those games. I didn't really know any of the transitions or what really even my goal was with this first big push. Now, does that sound like an ideal way to learn a new build order, playing against Cham, one of the absolute best players in the Americas? I don't think so, especially not if I'm already having an off day, which I absolutely was on this day. And that's part of what pushed me into trying out this different strategy. Don't get me wrong, guys, being aggressive can be very, very good, especially when you're having an off day, because it takes control of the pace of the game. It really puts you in the driver's seat. It's generally easier than playing defensive because your aggression gives you scouting and it keeps you up to date on the state of your opponent, what they're building, what they're transitioning into, and so on and so forth. And on top of that, hell, you're the one being aggressive. If they make a big mistake with their defense, you can get massive damage done and take an easy victory. The issue in this game is how I went about it. It wasn't well planned, I didn't know those transitions, and I couldn't use any of those hidden advantages of aggression, which I outlined way back in daily number 11. Now, if you're in the lower or mid leagues, you might be able to just make it work, making something up, but you're going to see here, you're never going to be as decisive. Look at this. Okay, great start. I didn't have it scouted, I got a queen, I got a few zerglings, I've lost almost nothing, and this is where the indecision starts. I'm not sure if I meant to go for the hatchery or the drones. I go for the hatchery, and then I turn around and go for the main, and then I run up to the third base, and absolutely silly maneuver there, and eventually end up running my zerglings into the mineral line to have them wedged between a bunch of drones and get completely annihilated, only taking a couple drones with them, and at the end of that, being down about 8 workers. You start to notice that whenever players are on losing streaks and they start to just choose their builds in a sort of panic or a desperate attempt to, maybe this will work, you notice that they're less decisive, they're more prone to making these obvious mistakes. And If I had simply clicked on this hatchery or simply committed to that main mineral line, I am 100% sure I could have got more damage done in this game. Now, as I was saying before, you know, maybe you're a player who's improvised builds and it's worked out okay for you, but really, if you have a game plan, if you have transitions outlined, and if you keep it within the realm of things which are familiar, things which you've either practiced before or are similar to something you've practiced before, those are the sort of rushes you want to go for when you're having an off day, not a brand new thing that you don't understand. This build was so far out of my realm of experience, it was a terrible choice. Of course, I'm going to try and make it work, and you're going to see the game go back and forth a little bit, but one pattern is going to remain. Cham is going to be way ahead in workers. And this gives us a little bit of time to talk about some of these other things. So this idea of inconsistency, what if you're having a bad day? What if you're not performing at your best? What is the first thing that suffers? Especially here in your aggressive game, in your rush game. I think the first thing to disappear is your ability to react quickly and also to improvise your tactics. So knowing how and where to micro your units, what your goals with microing your units are. I think you're so busy just doing the basic tasks of your build that you miss out on a lot of these improvisational details, the fancy reactions that are what you probably excel at when you're really on point. I think just doing basic tasks, keeping you so busy, I think that's something we kind of forget. When we're playing bad, we kind of see it as a failure in our overall strategy or something like that. And I think this is because most of us have this idealized view of our own abilities based on our best performances. Whether it's in your job, your hobby, or your StarCraft play, I think most of us identify as our best possible self. I think a lot of us think that, you know, I'm as good as the best game I ever played, and I should always play at that level. You always hear Diamond players saying, well, you know, I'm in Diamond, but it's just because I don't play enough to be in GM. That's the ego speaking. That's us not really accepting that just beating a GM player one time doesn't put us on that same level. The truth is we don't always perform at 100%. On off days, we're probably only at 70 or 80%, or maybe even way lower if we're having a really bad day. This should be really obvious. Obviously, we can't always perform at our absolute best. Especially after doing anything competitive, we should know this. Yet somehow our ego blocks us from making that assessment. It seems to think we should always play at 100%. And instead of realizing, oh, I'm not playing that well today, let's find a way around that. Let's try to simplify the game. We try to demand more of ourselves than what we would normally have. The big thing that happens here is we say, look, my normal play is not working. My strategy is failing. Let's change it up. But in this case, it was trying to make a rush up. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to make up a rush off the top of my head. No planning, no build order, improvise, make it work, microing like a madman. But holy shit, man, I'm playing worse than normal today. How the hell do you ever expect me to make this work? And your ego is just there like, just do it, man. Come on, why are you so bad at this game? So what we can draw from this is if you're already struggling with your regular play, demanding even more of yourself is not the answer. Sometimes you've just got to accept that your condition's not that great and you need to play around the fact that you're not executing as well as you normally do. Rather than trying to ask yourself to execute more than usual and changing up your normal play, inventing these brand new crazy builds and trying to improvise them, why not simplify your play? Because the problem is not your normal play. Your normal strategy is fine. It normally works for you. It's your inability to execute your normal play on this given day when you're only at 80% capability. What you need to do is simplify your game. Rushes, they can be a great way to do that, but you should use something you're familiar with and have a solid game plan of what your key goals and next steps would be in most scenarios. A much better plan for me would have been to go for a hatch gas pool. Into a fast third, into a big never-ending Ling Bane flood where I commit super hard, try to overwhelm champ, cancel his third base, and get some real momentum going. Now, why is that such a good choice for me? The reason is I am familiar with it. I have played that opening 1,000 times. I know the macro transition off it. Changing it into a big aggressive build where I commit hard with a Lingbane is not much of a change. It just says, well, rather than having to struggle to defend the counter pressure while macroing up, you just keep rallying Lingbane. It makes your life easier. And that sort of change is what you need to do when you're playing worse than normal. I've practiced the micro so many times. I know the muted transitions, the roach transitions, and I'd probably even choose a transition ahead of time because I'd say, you know what, I'm not playing very well. I don't think I really have enough APM, enough attention, enough brain power on this day. I'm just not playing that well. I'm going to make things easy for myself. I'm just going to say I'm definitely going to do a Roach Baneling all-in after the Big Ling Bane attack. And the reason for that is then you don't have to react. You don't have to be scouting and responding to the situation. Instead, you can just focus on your basics of let's execute my opening well. Let's execute my Ling Bane pressure well. Let's execute the transition into a Roach Baneling attack well. You're simplifying the game plan. You're taking away the fancy reactions, the complex adjustments and improvisation, which is the hardest part of StarCraft and the thing you'll struggle with the most if you're playing subpar. So if I simplified my focus with some well-planned aggression, I think it would have made up for my poor form in these games. Now, because I know you guys love to watch the finish of games, let's fast forward. You can see I magically held on this game and I actually did really well, except I don't. I'm starting my evolution chamber when +2 started for Cham. I'm down 5 workers and already 20 army supply. Yeah, this is not going to end well, guys. That's a lot of Roach Ravager coming across the map. This is not going to end well. I'm going to try and buy time. You know when someone's building spine crawlers against Roach Ravager armies that they're pretty desperate. And they're like, yeah, this will help. It definitely won't get biled down instantly. And Cham here is going to do a fantastic job of just going in, going out. I'm trying to lure him into this choke point on the north. He's going to refuse to come in there, and he's just going to keep wailing away on my hatchery and just trying to bait me out into the open to defend that hatchery. And the moment I'm in the open, I can't zone him out with my biles, and he will jump on top of me. We're going to see that in just a moment. Look, he's going to get a bit more damage on this hatchery, and I'm like, oh god, I got to protect it. I got to protect it. Yeah, we got it. Oh god, he's going to kill my hatchery. I got to get out there. Uh-oh. And the moment I move out there, Cham knows it's his moment, dodges some biles, and he jumps on top. Very well played by Cham. And me losing control of a game because I was just playing a little bit silly. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at part number 2, game number 2. And this is going to be the second sort of reaction to inconsistency, which players always do. Myself, lots of players I coach when they're having trouble in a matchup. And this is basically overreacting. That's the simplest way to think of this one. Doesn't have any fancy name. It's where players start to try to adjust and adapt to every single little thing in a game. You know what? I can, I can go 4 hatchery before pool because you know what? I don't think my opponent can punish me. Yeah. You know what? I don't know why I never thought of it that way before, but I think I can do that. It's when you start to think you can get away with the impossible or you can do something extraordinary or silly, and you usually decide this in the heat of the moment without really thinking it through. This is a great example of that. This game, I was thinking, you know what? Who needs Zergling speed? Probe leaves the base, cancel Ling speed. Yeah, what a great idea. And you know why I thought this? I thought most players go home with that first adept anyway, and you don't have any more adept pressure until about 5 minutes or 4 minutes 40. So I can delay my Ling speed like a full minute. I can get hatch first down, my third hatchery down earlier, and then, oh, it'll be sick. I'll have like more drones, more lava, and then I'll have Ling speed still in time. This is so silly. Now, why is this so silly? Because this is going to change up my entire build order. I'm already having an off day. This is that same day as the Cham replay we just looked at. I was having a bad day. I'm on my Korean account this time. On my barcode, as you can see, the fact, it's LLLL versus I. And the idea of saying I'm playing worse than normal, let's make a really minor change that makes me very exposed to pressure and also changes up my entire build order. It gives you opportunities to screw up your macro because you're suddenly unfamiliar with how you need to adjust your macro. And it also opens up the opportunity for this to happen. I'm not used to defending without Ling speed. My Zerglings are idling at my other base right now. I'm not even controlling them. I'm so thrown off by what's happening. I'm already having an off day, and I've put myself in a position where I'm trying to figure out how to adjust my macro with the change in the order of everything with that Ling speed moving around. Do I really get that much money out of delaying spending that 100 minerals? Nope, it doesn't help me much at all. But the potential pain of messing up your macro, potentially messing up your defense as bad as I did that, it's all just distraction. It's all just things throwing you away from your normal rhythm and distracting you. And remember what we were talking about, guys. On an off day, you're already struggling to do your basic tasks, struggling to spend your money, struggling to execute your basic defense. And to distract yourself by changing up your entire pattern is a fantastic way to throw off your own rhythm and hand momentum into your opponent's hands. You need to just focus on your normal game. That's what I should have been doing here. I should have got normal zergling speed, not trying to factor in new things, and just focus on executing my build order, focus on my defense, maybe commit a little bit more to units or pressure here and there, maybe not focus on scouting quite as much as normal, but I definitely shouldn't have done it the way I did it here. Maybe if it was a gate into Nexus opening with just single adept, this wouldn't have been so bad. But the thing is, I hadn't thought it through. I hadn't fully understood this little adjustment. And I didn't pay attention to the fact that it was Nexus first into 2 very early gateways. This is where things all just fall apart. So guys, focus on your generic stuff. Focus on your normal execution. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. That is the one thing we keep coming back to here. We always try to just do fancy things, and we put more of a burden on our shoulders as things get harder in the game. You can even take some risks. If you skip on scouting because you don't have the APM, you're having a tough day, you just need to focus so much on your basic macro. Maybe you play greedy against one option. Maybe you skip spore crawlers, or maybe you skip having a few extra roaches or something like that. It's okay to take a risk here or there. As long as you can put most of your APM and focus into your standard defense, you'll still be in a good spot. And even if you lose 10% of your games to those surprise DTs, it's better than losing every single game in a row. A big thing that happens is you start to lack confidence. As you start losing, as you're not playing that well, a lot of players really struggle. And I think you should actually, once you listen to this video, take confidence when you're having an off day. Because you're not the only one out there that has off days. Your opponents have off days too. You're going to run into your fair share of people. They've got the same MMR as you. And remember, that doesn't mean they're always going to play to that level. Sometimes they're going to play like absolute shit. There are GM players out there who on a weekly basis will play at least one game at the level of a diamond player at best. This happens. It happens to me. This is just the nature of any competitive activity, the nature of human inconsistency. We aren't robots, guys. We don't always perform the same. If you simplify your play, expect a little bit less from yourself, and just focus on your basics, you'll find you're able to deal with that inconsistency and deal with these situations where things aren't going quite the way you'd want them to. So lower those expectations, detach your ego from your highest possible performance. Remember you're able to perform at many different levels. And think about interviews you see of pro players as well. Just to top off this little bit of the show, they always in an interview will say things like, oh, I just felt so good that day. I could just feel it. Everything was working. I felt like I was all over him. And you can tell they have this sort of like awe and just real pleasure in the fact that, oh my God, I actually played really well. And the reason is because normally they don't. They are normal humans as well. They have days where they play at 80%. You'll hear pros say, oh my God, I played so bad, even after winning games. But when they are feeling it, think of Harston when he was winning Home Story Cup, bobbing his head up and down to his music, just so happy the whole time. He was really in the zone. That's when you're at 100%. And you can see when a pro player is at 100%, they appreciate it so much because they have played so many tournaments where they were performing at 70%, 60%, 80%. And it's super frustrating for those guys. So for you guys just playing on ladder, especially if you're not a pro, remember, it's not so bad. So in summary, as we watch me get my face kicked in, I think the best ways to summarize today's topic is this. As competitive people playing a competitive game, we love to win. When we start losing, we get frustrated, and we use that energy to try and push ourselves to overcome our issues. Unfortunately, we usually push that energy in the wrong direction. We try to completely reinvent our way of playing the game, and we fail more and more. I think to really use that energy and frustration at defeat, we need to direct it towards focusing on the details of our regular game. The everyday things we normally do without thinking, but get forgotten on our off days. The only way to overcome an off day is to put all your conscious energy, all that energy into those basic tasks. I think with enough effort, you'll actually find your rhythm again some days and maybe recover a little bit of that form. Maybe you'll go up from 70% form to 80% form. And at the very least, you'll avoid going on these terrible losing streaks where you're trying to reinvent the wheel with every single game and end up just throwing away a horde of ladder points. Now, a final point as I get my my skull caved in here. Remember, not all lost streaks are due to inconsistency in your level. It could also be due to meta changes and strategy, and that's something I haven't talked about today. I'm talking about your inconsistency in how you're executing, in how you're playing. I think you need to critically evaluate which one it is for you on any given day. I've seen players think they're just playing bad when in fact their style was super outdated and they just hadn't adapted to the new meta. I've also seen players do the opposite and abandon a great style, say swapping from Mutiling Bane to Roaches, just because they had one bad day with it and they wanted to blame something other than their own condition. So guys, that about wraps it up. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I really enjoyed investigating this topic and looking at a lot of patterns which I personally experience, and I've seen a lot of other people experience as well, and how we kind of push ourselves down that road which leads to those losing streaks. So that's all for now, guys. Thank you very much for hanging out. Don't forget to hug a watermelon, kick a walrus, and of course punch a garden gnome in the gonads. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye and good night.